Good day. So I've done 2 videos now on what it means to be possessed. I've waited till the last video to talk about the more esoteric and mystical and spirit possession. You know, there's the other possession. It's easy to understand how a mind can be possessed. You know, it can be enslaved by an idea or by a person. However, the idea of being possessed by like a demon or a deity is something that's a little bit off the beaten path, let's say, and a lot of people might even turn off the video right now just because why listen? Well, I'll say that I believe that there is different kinds of possession. There's been too many weird episodes that people have some people will call it schizophrenia nowadays, like it's that's a novel disease as far as it seems novel, but it's probably been happening here forever. Check this out. You gotta check that out. Alright. Look at the baby. Look at the babies. So there is people that I believe that are I believe that there's certain drugs that open people up to being possessed. There's certain even situations, like there's a lot of people that have come out of even like Vipassana or whatever 10-day meditations, and they've come out being possessed by a spirit, or at least it's seemingly possessed. And sometimes I have one idea that when we have our Kundalini awakening, if you have a really strong shadow that you are awakening against, for lack of a better term, then I could see the shadow playing many tricks, or the old ego, let's say, the shadow of the old ego playing as many tricks on this new you to try to shut down the awakening. Because there's a lot of crazy things that happen around these awakenings, you know, and here's another example. Like they talk about the Dionysian festivals and how people dance and don't sleep for like 3 days, and they take mushrooms or drink alcohol or just do some kind of psychoactive substance and become possessed by the spirit of Dionysus, which in my estimation is, as long as it's health, because the idea of Dionysus is he can be both the demon and the light, you know. So I believe that this is why we do have to be very careful with using substances in general. I say you're going to have your likelihood of being possessed by a good spirit from taking mushrooms or ayahuasca or peyote. That's where you can have that's where I believe you are opening up the good spirit. However, I also believe that you could become a fallen angel. You can awaken and then fall also, which means like you can awaken and be attached to the Godhead, but not have the karma to carry it. And because of that, you'll fall and and it'll be really hard to come back from that, I think, psychologically, because you have seen what it's like to be on the other side, and to have, let's say, the angel's wings, and then they've been lopped off, you know. And so a lot of people believe that if you don't have the karma in your life for some of these psychoactive substances, then it may not be the best idea to have that awakening yet, because you may not have the karma to maintain it, you know. And when I had my Kundalini awakening, it was like being possessed by another spirit. It was like, and I don't know how else to explain it besides it was like I was a different person. I still was me, but there was so many sides of myself that it came out that I was unrecognizable. And that can cause some issues for yourself and for people around you, because when you start acting so different, people are like, did you just lose your mind? And likely you did just lose your mind, but did you lose a good part of your mind or a bad part of your mind is the question, because there's probably parts of our minds we would probably be better off if we lost. So I do believe that a lot of people that have really intense Kundalini awakenings, it can seem like you're being possessed by a benevolent spirit. And that's like the Dionysian consciousness, and going to these Dionysian festivals about is opening up that other, and almost that, and when you connect to the Godhead and to the, like, let's say, the collective consciousness, it feels like you are possessed by a spirit, and that's that. And maybe you are, but you're possessed by the spirit, the great spirit, you know. Then there's the dark possession, you know, that I do believe that there is, you know, there's there's people that have schizophrenics and then they go on killing sprees, right? And, you know, like that tells me that they can be possessed by evil demons too, you know. And you see that around like drug use. People become little demons, especially like around meth. Like there's actually, you see people talking to themselves and they're like talking to other beings and stuff, and they're just messed right up. And it's like, to me, things like meth and amphetamines allow us, unfortunately, open us up to demon possession, you know. And that's why I find it really curious why they give that to people for ADD. You know, it's almost like they'd rather them be possessed by the dark father spirit than to be possessed by the spirit that's trying to come through them, that is themselves. But there is, I know of people that have went through Kundalini awakenings that happened from both 5-MeO and from the 10-day silent meditation. And you know, one of the people I know ended his life, but he had two different situations where he had voices in his head that told him to do things that are definitely not godly. One was, I'll prove it to you, cut your finger off. So he took an axe and cut his finger off. The second one is it told him to drive off the road, and I'll prove it to you, I'll drive it off the road. Right? And it sounds like a lot of what happened in the Bible, where Satan says, well, if God's behind you, then why don't you jump off the cliff, right? So there is a good voice and a bad voice, and they can masquerade as each other. And that's why I believe a lot of people that seem so virtuous spiritually, especially spiritually virtuous, are actually little demons waiting to get power, you know. So, I mean, I do believe that if you are living just through what the Babylon world builds for you, then you are possessed by the spirit. Possessed, or to be honest, is there any spirit in you at all? You know? If you're just following, just going down the path that's led for you without any to little choice of your own, then what can we really say about your spirit, right? It's definitely better than being possessed by an evil spirit, but I would rather people awaken and go through the confusing time of awakening to that benevolent spirit inside themselves, which is the great spirit, rather than being spiritless. And I know there is a spectrum. Nobody is completely spiritless. At least not as far as I know. I'd encourage people to find their voice in their spirit, and they will realize how much it is very much as powerful of a spirit as anybody can connect to. You have it in you just as much as anybody else does. Obviously, don't be possessed by an external spirit besides yourself. But you almost have to remember that when you're thinking about like the devil on your shoulder and the angel on your shoulder, and you making the judgments between which voice to listen to, there is 3 spirits there. So and I believe the angel spirit is what is good. What is good order? It's good order and direction, and that's God. It's the angel spirit. The devil spirit, sometimes it could be an external spirit, possessed spirit, or it could just be the evil flesh, or the words that the ego tells you to continue to appease the flesh, And I believe much more time, I would believe that is more important as far as the flesh goes. There's the one great spirit, which is the one energy that we're all controlled by, and then there's the flesh that is easy for us to blame on a spirit or a bad energy that's an external place, and we may call that spirit possession, but a lot of the time that's just being possessed by the flesh. So I'd say more often we're being possessed by the flesh and by this world more than we are being actually possessed by another entity. Anyways, much love.